Hi, I'm Roger Hoy, and this is Racism in Sports, presented by myself, Riley, Wyatt, and Andrew. Sports have long been regarded as a unifying force, bringing together people from different backgrounds and cultures to compete on a level playing field. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly harmonious event, the ugly specter of racism persists. Racism in sports is a deeply rooted issue that has plagued the industry for decades, impeding progress towards equality and tarnishing the integrity of the games we love. This narrative aims to explore the historical context, current challenges, and potential solutions surrounding racism in sports. On to you guys.
I researched the Donald Sterling incident. So he was the former owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, a professional basketball team in the NBA. He was the owner from 1981 to 2014. And he was known for his controversial ownership, tenure, and previous allegations of discriminatory practices. So what happened? In April 2014, an audio recording was leaked to the public. The recording captured Sterling making racially insensitive comments during a conversation with his girlfriend at the time. In this audio recording, he allegedly says, "You can bring them in, you can do whatever you want. The little I ask you is not to promote it on that, and not to bring them to my games." These remarks targeted African American players and reflected deeply rooted racist attitudes and systematic oppression in sports. So the impact on players in the NBA, many NBA players were deeply affected by his comments. This issue highlighted the broader issue of racism within the sports industry. Players, coaches, and league officials all called for increased efforts to combat racism and promote inclusivity. Also, the NBA imposed severe penalties on Sterling, including a lifetime ban from the NBA and a $2.5 million fine. So, lastly, I explored continuing the fight against racism. I dove into some organizations and some athletes that use their platform to promote change. So, for example, NFL's Inspired Change Initiative aims to address social justice issues, including racism, by supporting organizations and efforts that champion equality and provide resources to underserved communities. And then an athlete I researched was LeBron James and his I Promise School in Akron, Ohio, which provides education and support to at-risk students.
Now we can move on to the topic of racism in football or soccer. And so the two main ways in which racism occurs within the sport is harassment during games from other members that are attending the game, in attendance of the game, and or abuse on social media, which is widely considered typically the most common form of racism that occurs within football. So how severe is the situation? So we can see the statistic by Sky Sports. And so we can see that 62% of people are generally concerned about witnessing a player receiving racist abuse. This is within the scope of the UK. And as you can see on this slide, we can see these are just three forms of racist abuse, occurrences of racist abuse that happened within the past 2-3 months alone within English football. And so we can see from this that it really is a severe situation, and it affects all different races, ethnic groups within the UK, and it's something that is still fairly common for despite the action that's been taken. So we can say that the situation is still very severe. And so a major turning point, I think, that happened 2 years ago during the summer of 2021, Euro 2021 occurred, and some context behind that was that England were playing in the final of the Euros, and when it came to a penalty shootout, England lost and 3 of the players that missed the penalties were of African descent, and so after that game, a lot of people in the UK began to target these three players racially, and they began to harass them online, and they began to use social media and tear them down and say very hurtful things. And so a lot of the country, even the whole world, football community together as a whole, came together and stood in solidarity amongst these three players. So we can see, like, in the top, the first image, we can see a mural that was made in England. So it has the three players with crown graphics on their heads, showing that, and it says that don't apologize for who you are, implying that they stand in solidarity against this racism. And we see in the second photo, that's Marcus Rashford, one of the players, and he's being honored with this mural and a lot of support and messages from fans supporting him. And we see here, even in this, we have this picture on the bridge where they have a whole banner with the three players' names saying that they stand with them. So I think that was a huge turning point in, I guess, the overall attitude. It kind of awoke people within the UK. It kind of made them aware of the severity of the racism in football, because this happened at the international stage of football. The Euro is one of the most watched tournaments in the world, and it was something that was super prominent and helpful almost to the fight against racism within football. So what's being done? So there's greater education. A lot of programs are being done now, being offered to schools that are attempting to target racism at the lowest level, because their belief is that nobody is born racist, and so they are attempting to teach these children about why we need to keep racism out of sport and out of our lives in general. And teams and leagues are clamping down on racist fans. There are now lots of punishments, lifelong bans from stadiums and from supporting teams, simply after being accused of racism, after being kicked out of the stadium for racism. We see the first image that there's no room for racism badges on all of the Premier League shirts, and so they're doing more to make racism within football visible and attempting to push it away. And then we can see in the second picture they're kneeling. They do this before every game to honor the fight against racism, and so they do this as sort of like a form of respect. All the players do it, and so it's been a thing since around 2020 starting, and it originated due to the George Floyd killing and huge output of Black Lives Matter. And so finally there's law enforcement involvement now. People who are harassing others online, people who are doing things that are considered racist, whether it's on the pitch or online, are now facing actual jail time sentences. And so there is a lot being done to combat racism in football.
In addition to racism being a serious human rights violation, it also has additional harmful side effects such as mental health problems, performance anxiety, PTSD, among other problems. When athletes face racism, they endure an assault on their sense of self-worth and belonging. The experience of being subjected to racial slurs, derogatory remarks, or exclusionary behaviors chips away at an athlete's confidence, leading to self-doubt, low self-esteem, and a diminished sense of identity. Racism affects the athlete's ability to focus, concentrate, and perform optimally, leading to a decline in their athletic performance, which further expedites the cycle of stress and anxiety. While sports should be a unifying force, promoting fairness, camaraderie, and exclusivity, the unfortunate reality is that racism continues to appear within sporting communities. However, through education, awareness, and collective action, we can help shape a future where every athlete, regardless of their race, can compete on a level playing field. We must educate ourselves and others about the diverse cultures and backgrounds that exist within our sporting communities. By fostering understanding and empathy, we can challenge stereotypes, break down barriers, and cultivate an environment of respect and appreciation for one another. In addition, it is essential for governing bodies, teams, and leagues to have a robust code of conduct that explicitly denounce racism and outline appropriate consequences for discriminatory behavior. Lastly, by encouraging athletes to speak out against racism, we can inspire others and create collective movement for change.